What's up, everybody? Mark with Coffee&Toys here. It is Marvel Monday. That means we have not one, but two G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero classic comic reviews to go over today. Yes, I missed last Monday, so I am doubling up today. Today we will be covering issues number 4 and 5 of A Real American Hero. So, with that being said, let's take a moment to step back and enjoy some coffee from coffeebrandcoffee.com. Yes, I am sporting one of their t-shirts today, but you can buy t-shirts from them, and I think they're on sale right now, pretty cheap. I think you can get a t-shirt for like 15 bucks, maybe less. It's not too bad. It's a good way to support them, good way to support the channel. Make sure to use that promo code Coffee&Toys, that's COFFEENTOYS, to save yourself 5% on your first order and every subsequent order thereafter. But today's brew is part of their subscription, so this is their Founders Series brew. I am enjoying it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to enjoy some of it right now. And I'm going to set it over on my coffee warmer, and we are going to get into the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero comics today. Issues 4 and issues 5. I will timestamp the video, so if you want to listen to episode 4 and then come back and listen to episode 5 later, I'll make sure to put the breakdown between the two. So, with that being said, let's begin our Marvel Monday review with G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 4. Okay, we have G.I. Joe issue number 4 from October of 1982. That is the month and year that yours truly was born, so I'm very excited to review this issue with you. And let's just start off right where it is. Issue number 4 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero is written by none other than Mr. Larry Hama. Plot and art by Herb Trimpe. Inkers Don D. Agostino and Jack Abel. Letterer Diana Albers. Colorer George Roussos. Editor Tom DeFalco. And the name of this issue is titled Operation Winfield. Operation Wingfield. I should try to get that right. It is Wingfield, not Winfield. Typo on my notes. That being said, the issue, the first thing I noticed is that plot and art are attributed to Herb Trimpe. Now, Larry Hama is the writer, but I'm kind of trying to figure out what happened with this issue. If Herb Trimpe is the plot, the person who made the plot, but Larry's the writer, it's almost like they kind of did it in tandem. Now, if you guys know something about this that I don't, please drop me a comment and let me know. But I did think that was very interesting that Herb Trimpe and Larry Hama kind of had an influence. This wasn't strictly just Larry writing this issue, so to speak. But yeah, otherwise, we move into the issue being called Operation Wingfield, and it opens up with Commander Wingfield. He is the leader of a group, a paramilitary group known as First Strike. And he's barking orders at these new recruits, and he is shooting at some targets in a firing range, and he actively makes his recruits run in front of the active fire. His Captain Crothers, and his second in command, Sherry, who is his wife, Wingfield's wife, say you really shouldn't be doing that with live rounds to our new recruits, and he basically ignores them and says this is how we're going to toughen them up, and they have to be prepared for every inevitability if they're going to be part of Strike First. Upon that, we hear someone yell, "Stop the projector," and we realize that we've actually been with the G.I. Joe team, and they have been watching some footage from Strike First that has been secretly captured, and that they are concerned with this paramilitary group. They actually think this paramilitary group has been sponsored by Cobra, and that they need to check it out. They need to infiltrate and see what is going on. And Hawk tells the Joe team that there's going to be a 3-man force that's going to go in, and it is going to be on the outside will be Snake Eyes as the backup, but the two that are going to actually do the infiltrating will be none other than Hawk himself and Grunt. Much to Grunt's he was not very happy about it. His dismay, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So we cut then to Hawk and Grunt entering the camp. They get off a Greyhound bus, and they are new recruits. And next day at 0600 hours, they are getting put through the rigors of this training regime, and they have to act like they cannot do what they're doing because they don't want to blow their cover as being, this elite fighting force, part of this elite fighting force. So they're actually like trying to do worse than they are. And meanwhile, Snake Eyes is using binoculars. He's setting up in a tree, and he's actually writing notes. So to speak, we get to see how Snake Eyes speaks for the first time here in issue 4. And he's just basically saying, hey, I'm going to have to sneak in at 22:30 hours and see if I can figure out what's going on, because that seems to be the low point in the evening when it's going to be the easiest to slip in. And we get to actually see Snake Eyes slipping into the base at that time. And at the same time of night, Grunt and Hawk go in to investigate the grounds, and they're trying to gather their own intel, and they are going to make their way to the armory. And as they make it to the armory, which, by the way, they did notice there was something going on at the HQ, but Hawk says to Grunt, we're not going, our primary focus is to get to the armory. Hopefully we'll figure out what's going on with the HQ later. And Snake Eyes is actually checking out the HQ. He has snuck in and is checking out the HQ. Grunt and Hawk, meanwhile, are at the armory, and they look it over. They see all these tanks and weapons, and Hawk says, yes, this group did not get this kind of munitions on their own. Obviously, they are being supplied by Cobra. That's the only thing that makes sense. Meanwhile, Snake Eyes in the rafters of the HQ is listening to Wingfield speak to his inner circle, so to speak, and he says, here is our plan, here's what we're doing. We are going to drop a nuclear warhead over in Russia. And they name the town, I think it's like Vladivostok or some made-up town. Or maybe it's not. If you know anything about Russia, let me know if the town in the issue is actually a real town. Here, I'll actually find out what it was, because I did not recognize the town myself. It is... I really think it's like Vladivostok. Vladivostok. I don't know. But that being said, they're going to drop this nuclear warhead on Russia. Russia's going to retaliate on the U.S., and the idea is that Strike First will rise from the ashes once the two superpowers annihilate themselves. So he says the first nuke they drop with this B-29 plane over Russia, and that they actually have a second nuclear warhead underneath their actual base where they're at right now. And that will be, and this is in the middle of nowhere, Montana. And that is the current plan. Blow it up over Russia. Russia will retaliate, but it will really be them exploding the second nuclear device in Montana, and the U.S. will think it is Russia as a retaliatory strike. Wingfield says, I'm the only person that knows how to disarm it once it is armed. So we got our plot there, and while we're in the armory, not Duke. I always say that because Hawk looks just like Duke in these issues. Anyway, Hawk and or Grunt trigger a silent alarm, and all the people clear out of the HQ to go stop Grunt and Hawk. And we have a pretty good brawl, pretty good scrap going on, and Hawk and Grunt are captured. So after they are captured, Snake Eyes has snuck into their radio room, tower, whatnot, in the base, and takes out the radio person and sends a distress call to the G.I. Joe headquarters, the pit. So we go back to, it's the next morning, 0600. Grunt and Hawk are about to be executed when literally Snake Eyes gets the drop on them. He drops down, he knocks out the operatives, and rescues Grunt and Hawk. Hawk makes the play that he is going to take another fighter jet that is there, because the B-29 that has the nuclear warhead has just lifted off with Carruthers on it. And he is going to be the operative that actually drops the nuclear warhead in Russia. Grunt, meanwhile, is working with Snake Eyes on trying to infiltrate the base where Wingfield is at. And as he's hiding behind this rock, Wingfield realizes it. His men start opening fire on Grunt. Snake Eyes is in the building, or on top of the building, rather. And he signals to Grunt, don't open fire, don't return fire, because all the families of the recruits are in this building, and essentially they don't want to take the chance of hitting an innocent civilian. So, with that being said, we cut back, and Hawk is chasing down this B-29. They start heading towards each other, and Hawk has no choice but to open fire. So he opens fire on the B-29 and manages to down it. It's starting to crash into the Pacific Ocean, and Hawk's like, pull up, Carruthers, pull up, or I'm sorry, eject. And unfortunately, Carruthers does not eject. He is either killed while in the plane or just decides to go down with the plane. But Hawk has successfully stopped the nuclear warhead from being dropped into Russia, and inevitably would have started World War III. Meanwhile, back at the base, Carruthers says, I've lost radio transmissions with Carruthers, and Wingsfield's like, that's it. We are going to detonate the nuclear warhead underneath us. Yeah, it's going to kill us, but it'll stop our adversaries, and it still might trigger, ultimately he wants the United States to fail, so that's his goal. And all these people are like, no, you can't do that, and a couple of them are getting ready to leave. I think it's a young woman with a young child, and Wingfield pulls out his pistol and says, no one leaves, we're about ready to triumph, even if it means our deaths. And he's seemingly like he's going to shoot this woman and her child. And he says, Sherry, his wife, back me up on this. And she says, absolutely, I know what I got to do. And we see her pulling out her pistol, and then we get some cuts of the pistol being aimed, and then we see the pistol firing. But then we realize that Sherry has actually shot Wingfield himself and killed him. So we get a murder in G.I. Joe comics. And this is a crazy issue because kids when I was growing up were reading this, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. I was just born, so I wasn't reading it, but that's crazy. So Wingfield is killed, but he has already activated the nuclear device. And as I mentioned earlier, the device is therefore cannot be disarmed. So at the same time he's shot and killed, he's activated the device, and the G.I. Joe secondary team is now on the scene. And what's interesting about this is that it's being led by Stalker, but the entire issue, they have referred to him as Ranger. They haven't referred to him as Stalker, so I'm kind of confused what was going on there. He is a Ranger, but I don't know if it was just a mess up in an early issue. Drop me a comment if you know down below, because yeah, he's not referred to as Stalker. When they're watching the projector, he's referred to as Ranger, and when he burst in and after they clean up the mess, they still refer to him as Ranger and never once as Stalker. But I digress. So at this point, they find the nuclear device. They have Zap bring in his demolitions, not suit, but like his tools and whatnot. And it is up to Zap and I believe it was, let's see, who do I have in my notes here? I apologize. My notes are behind my camera and I can't see everything. It is Zap and Grunt that need to get the warhead disarmed. And Hawk has returned, so he made a really quick flight to, I think he shot him down somewhere near Alaska. So he went from Montana to Alaska, essentially Alaska and back in a very short amount of time. I don't know what kind of plane he had, but it must have been very, very, very fast. Hawk says you've got 5 minutes to get this thing disarmed before it blows up. So Zap is opening it up, and there's these 4 posts holding this large lead ball that has the uranium-235 inside of it, which is what you need to activate and have a nuclear explosion. And so as he's cutting these posts or these pillars apart, Grunt is the one that has to do the grunt work, if you allow me to make that joke, of holding this massive lead ball and trying to pull it away as Zap is removing these posts to make sure it doesn't touch together and cause a nuclear reaction. So with a few seconds left, Zap manages to remove it. Grunt lifts it out, and essentially the day is saved. At this point now, we end the issue, and we find out from Hawk that the timer was running fast on the warhead, and they actually literally only had 3 seconds before it would have actually exploded. So, they give us that little cliffhanger after the fact. I don't understand. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose other than to say, oh, they cut it super close. And in the meantime, some of the locals have pulled up, and they see all these G.I. Joe people here, and they think it's a new military exercise or something. So they make some jokes at the end of the issue to say, oh yeah, liquor prices are going to go up, hide your women. And they just that's how the issue ends. So overall, what do I think of this issue? I think it's a very fun issue, although it does have, like I said, that whole Ranger instead of Stalker thing's kind of strange. Don't really understand the end of the issue because it's like crisis averted, and it seems like every issue needs to end with something funny. We've noticed that in the first 3 issues, they try to end with something kind of cutesy funny, and I'm not really sure what the point in that is, honestly. But I did enjoy this issue. Again, we see in these issues that Cobra is not the primary focus. Sometimes they're in the background working, and we'll, as we move on, we'll see Cobra get more and more involved until it's just almost exclusively Cobra and nobody else that the Joe team deals with. I do kind of like that they show Cobra working in the shadows, though. I really do enjoy that with these first few issues. I think that's really fun. I think that's where I like, in my head canon, that's where I always like Cobra, is working out of the shadows and not just a direct Cobra versus Joe influence, or not influence, but infighting. So yeah, overall, a fun issue, but we are not done yet. With that issue being done, let's move on to G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 5. Okay, we are back at it. G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue number 5, came out in November of 1982, and once again is written by none other than Larry Hama. Artwork is now by Don Perlin. Inkers, John DiAgostino and Mike Esposito. We have letterer Jim Novak, colorer Stan Goldberg, and the editor is Tom DeFalco once again. So we do get a little bit of a new group working on this, and the artwork is definitely different for this issue compared to the first 4. Looks very different. I would say we see characters in a new light, so to speak, with the new artwork that kind of looks, I don't want to say more cartoony, but the Joes seem more like their counterparts from the cartoon, I guess is what I want to say. And this issue is entitled Tanks for the Memories. So yes, issue kicks off with Scarlet Stalker, who, by the way, is super buff. I mean, Steeler is jacked in this episode, and he's wearing like just a tank top. So I mean, this man should have been a boxer. Breaker and Clutch, and they're all cleaning up the Mobat for the upcoming parade they're going to be in. And during all this, Steeler is constantly trying to impress Scarlet, talking about all the advanced features of the Mobat, but Scarlet is completely uninterested. She doesn't care about all that stuff. She even says she doesn't care for tanks. And they're going over how the tank can be submerged. It has an outside of the tank speaker system, and it has advanced targeting computers and all this secret stuff, but it really just looks like a regular tank. And so Scarlet asks why they should be putting all this advanced technology in something such as a parade, and Steeler says, hey, that was General Flagg's idea, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff are going to be at the parade, and they want to use the Mobat and its new capabilities for some sensitive missions, and Flagg wants to surprise them in the parade and say, oh, that regular tank over there is actually the Mobat, and that's where the superiority lies, that it looks just like any other U.S. government tank. We cut back over now to LaGuardia Airport, and we see a small container of X-ray film that is being passed off from courier to courier until it finally finds it in the hands of a Cobra operative, who then is going through these hidden rat-infested tunnels, sewers, you name it, looks disgusting, until this operative finally reaches none other than Cobra Commander and the Baroness in their secret hideout. And Cobra Commander is actually taking target practice on some cutouts of the G.I. Joe team members. And what's interesting about this is that the Snake Eyes cutout is not in black. It's actually done in green. And if you are not familiar with it, there is a rumor / possibility that Snake Eyes was originally going to have the same military green style outfit as the rest of the Joes, but they changed it when they were making the toy and printed him entirely in black because that was supposed to save on some cost. That not only that were they reusing parts, they were now just painting the character black, and we got the iconic Snake Eyes that we know and love today. But very interesting in this issue, issue number 5, where we've already seen Snake Eyes for 4 issues in black, but in this issue, that cutout is colored all in green. And again, these are different artists working on this issue, so it kind of makes me wonder, and I wonder if it makes you wonder. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think about that, or if you have any more information that I haven't already shared with that. But back to the story. We go back to the parade, and the grandstand has General Flagg and the Joint Chief of Staffs all sitting there, and they are talking about various things as the parade marches on, and the MOBAT is about 10 minutes out from being near the grandstand for them to be able to see it. The MOBAT itself is in between the Springfield Drum and Bugle Corps, Springfield, remember that, and behind, in front of the Navy's Nautilus, which is it's a float. And one of the Joes notes that the drum and bugle corps are terrible. Like, they're missing beats. They sound like it's their first day they've ever played an instrument. And we actually catch Steeler is zooming in on one of the what do you call them? The people with the sticks, the twirly sticks. Batonist? I don't know. Whatever you call him. He's kind of zooming in on her backside using the advanced cameras or targeting sensors on the MOBAT. So that was kind of funny. Clutch. I'm sorry. So meanwhile, while he's doing that, suddenly the Bugle Corps starts wrapping a giant sheet around the MOBAT, and people in the are out in the crowd are like, oh, they're going to do like a magic and make this tank disappear. And the Joes are what is going on here? Suddenly, the Nautilus actually opens up, the float opens up, and they quickly realize that this is a ploy to capture the MOBAT tank during the middle of a live parade, which is absolutely bonkers. And anyway, Clutch hits the gas, and they peel out of the parade, and they are taking off, and the Springfield marching band, bugle band, whatever, is actually Cobra operatives, and they go chasing after it. And again, this happens about 10 minutes away from the grandstand. And in the meantime, Clutch is using that amplifier with the outside speaker to yell at pedestrians, say, get the heck out of the way, we're trying to get through here, so they don't run over anybody. And an important key to note is that at this point, there is no ammunition on this device. Before they took it into the parade, they're like, we can't bring live ammunition in here. We have to, we have no ammo. So they are on the run from Cobra with no weapons. And they actually wind up hiding in a construction zone, and we cut back and we see Cobra Commander from his hidden location barking orders at his operatives saying, find it, we need to find it now, exterminate anybody that's in the way. And the Joe team is definitely in trouble. So they're hiding in this construction area. Meanwhile, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are mad because it's been 15 minutes. The MOBAT's not there yet. They're getting annoyed. And Cobra Commander says, it cuts back to Cobra Commander, and Cobra Commander says, the tank is now in Central Park. Go get it. Our thermal detectors have picked it up. And sure enough, the Joe team has left the construction area, and they are now in Central Park. And the Cobra operatives walk up, they're looking all around, and they don't see anything. They're just looking at a lake, and they say, we don't see it. And Cobra Commander's like, you are right on top of it. And suddenly, the MOBAT comes out of the water. As we mentioned earlier, it is fully submersible, and it's a standoff. The tank is with the operatives. The operatives have bazookas, and the Joe team says, this is your last chance. We're going to open fire. Cobra Commander overhears it and says, they're bluffing. I know they can't have ammo. They follow code. They do not have weapons. But just then, a shot rings out from the MOBAT and disperses the Cobra operatives, and they scatter. And so the MOBAT takes back off. It's like, all right, we got to get going. And Clutch says, I heard Cobra Commander's voice on one of the operatives' radio, so he actually might be here. And as General Flagg is continuing to be scolded by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Clutch says, I just picked up a heavy frequency, electronic frequency. I know where Cobra Commander's at. And all of a sudden we see the tank buzzing straight at the grandstand. And he's heading directly at the grandstand, and Flag curses Clutch because everybody's bailing except General Flag off the bandstand. And Flag curses Clutch and says he's going to put him on permanent latrine duty and begins to pull out his pistol. Flag yells, "Hit the brake, Clutch." And I want to point out in here that brake, it's the incorrect brake. It's this type of brake, not a pedal that you push on a vehicle. So the letterer messed that one up. Surprised it didn't get caught by the editor, but again, those kind of things happen. But it did make it into the issue. It is misspelled, B-R-E-A-K instead of B-R-A-K-E. And Clutch responds, "Sorry, sir, I have got a tank in my ear." And he completely smashes into the grandstand, and Flag manages to jump off at the very, very last moment. And revealed when smashing through the grandstand is that Cobra Commander and his henchmen were using the grandstand as a base. Again, just so crazy comical that, and the gall of Cobra Commander to think he can get away with having a base directly underneath General Flag for this parade. But, you know, it's Cobra. That's what they do. And Flag recovers, gets up, and he has his pistol still, and he points it at Cobra Commander. And Cobra Commander takes the opportunity to grab a Girl Scout from her troop and basically use her as a shield, and holds a gun to her head and says, "I know you won't open fire as long as I have this hostage." General Flag hesitates just enough time for Cobra Commander to get a shot off on Flag and wing him right in the temple. Cobra Commander then takes off with his operatives and seemingly to get away. In the meantime, the issue wraps up with Clutch. Scarlet is taking care of Clutch. Scarlet is taking care of Hawk. No, that's not right either. Scarlet is taking care of General Flag. And Clutch says to General Flag, "I don't understand why you didn't take the shot. You're an expert marksman. You would have hit him, no problem." And Flag kind of plays it off and says, "Yeah, but we're the good guys." Not wanting to take that chance, even if he's an expert marksman, on causing a civilian casualty. So I thought that was good character building for Flag, especially since we had just seen him, wanting to put Clutch in his place. And as the issue concludes, Flag says, I just have one question. How did you guys stop those bazooka troopers and whatnot when you were in that standoff? I know you guys didn't have any ammo. So what happened?" And basically, Clutch and Breaker say, "Oh yeah, well we just turned up the amplifier on the speakers outside the tank." And then it shows Breaker popping a bubble, and essentially that's what they had done. They had put the microphone in front of him popping a bubble, and it had been amplified so loud that it mimicked the mortar shot, the sound of a mortar shot, and scared them. So Cobra Commander was right. They didn't have any weapons, and yet they were able to fool the Cobra operatives by doing that trick. And the issue ends with a final panel of General Flag scratching his head saying, "Son of a gun." So that's how that issue ends. It was good to see Cobra back in the issue, in the forefront, directly with a crazy scheme to try to abduct this technology of the Mobat. Also interesting to notice that this is where we get into the comic pushing toys. The Mobat was the most expensive vehicle for 1982 for the G.I. Joe toy line. So of course they're going to put it in one of the very first issues up front. You can tell that Hasbro really worked with them and said, make sure you push the Mobat. It's so cool. It's not just a tank. It's got all these extra features. And kids like me, kids are little adults that are now older than me, when we were kids, all had the idea, oh, the Mobat's so cool. It's got all this cool stuff inside of it. So a fun issue. Good to see Cobra Commander. Good to see the G.I. Joe team out smarting Cobra once again. And yeah, a fun issue. And like I said, the artwork was completely different than the previous issues because it's being drawn by, like I said, Don Perlin in this issue. And, just fun stuff overall. Bonus fun thing, not directly related, but the 2007 G.I. Joe convention set was also called Tanks for the Memories, but was not, to my knowledge, actually based on this comic because there were different figures included in that one. But it was very interesting that Tanks for the Memories, the convention set, shares the same name as issue 5 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. And that's it. We are at a wrap. We have now went through issues number 4 and 5 here on Marvel Monday for the channel. And I had so much fun going over both these issues. I had a whole bunch of fun reading them. I enjoy sharing the story with you guys. Let me know what you think. Did you like issue 4 more than issue 5? Do you remember reading it when you were young? I obviously, like I said, I didn't remember reading this when I was young. I came into the comics much later on. So when I go through these issues, sometimes it's been a while since I've read these because it's been a long while since I've read this entire continuity from issue 1 to 155. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I hope you guys are enjoying it a lot. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. And with that, I'm Mark. You've been watching Coffee with Toys, and I'll see you later.